This is the CHUWI UBook X. It's a 2-in-1 tablet cum laptop type device. And then I picked this up in the early part of December, and it was currently on sale. And it's still on sale actually if you were to look on the Amazon webpage. So you can buy this device directly from CHUWI, and it's a nice little tablet, and I'm going to give you a rundown of the specs in a moment. Now, as you can see, it's a pretty large screen. I think it's a 12-inch screen. We'll get into the ins and outs of that in a minute, but it's a nice setup. It looks kinda like a Microsoft Surface. It even has the rear panel that you fold out, although it's a little frame rather than a full panel that folds out from the back. And I'll go over why I purchased this, but first, let's have a look at the screen here and go over some of the specs. So what you can see here is it's called the CHUWI UBook X. It's a 2-in-1, 12-inch screen. It comes with Windows 11. It also comes with the keyboard and a stylus. This model has the Intel i5 10210Y. Now, that's a kind of old processor, mobile processor. It's about a couple of generations old, so it doesn't have the big little technology. It's just standard cores, and it's a 4-core, 8-thread device. It comes with a 512 gig SSD built in, which I believe you can open up and upgrade to 1 terabyte. That's what the documentation says, but I've not actually opened it. It comes with a 2K display, so it's 2160 by 1440. It's full touchscreen IPS display. It has 2.4 gig and 5 gig Wi-Fi. I've tested that, it runs really well, and BT 5.0. And this particular model has 12 gig of RAM. Now you can buy the UBook X with an 8 gig model, but I recommend the 12 gig model, especially at the price it's going for just now. So this seller here, Big Fan Trading Co., no idea where they are, but they're via Amazon. And I will say, I was a little bit sceptical initially. Delivery was pretty quick. They're offering a deal, so it's £382 with an £80 voucher off, so it drops it down to £300. Now, keep your eyes peeled. They appear to be getting stock in and selling stock. I don't know if they're working directly with CHUWI or they're buying from another third-party vendor. Something's happening. When I purchased it, I got a £100 voucher. So it dropped it to just below £300. And then for the last 2 weeks, and I've been meaning to try and get a video out for this, for the last 2 weeks it's been a £120 voucher. You can, however, buy direct from CHUWI, and it will only cost you £299, I think. Now, I don't know what the delivery's like. It's going to come direct from China. This actually came within, I think it was meant to be 3 to 5 days, and it arrived on, I think, the 3rd or the 4th day. I was quite impressed anyway. So I've just taken a few screen grabs here. We'll go through some of the other features of the device. So here you go, this is just marketing guff from CHUWI. Tells you this information again, but as you can see, you can use it like a tablet, you know, hold it in your hands. And I use it like this quite often. In fact, I use it in this orientation quite a lot, and we'll go over why in a moment. And in fact, why is it not rotating? I must have turned rotation lock on. It comes with Windows 11. It's Windows 11 Home. And it's fine. I've not had any problems with it, and I did have rotation lock turned on. So 12 gig of RAM, which I feel is it's kind of the sweet spot for Windows. So Windows will happily gobble up about 4 gig of your memory, no problem. Your GPU side, depending on the game you're trying to play, can gobble up a gig easily, I suppose. Although this isn't really powerful enough to play any big games, that leaves you plenty of memory for doing other stuff. I've never found this device to be lacking in RAM. Although, what I will say is, it's DDR3, so it's not particularly fast. And I feel that kind of holds back this mobile processor, although I believe that's what it's designed for. So, next page here, so as you can see, this particular model comes with 12 gig of RAM and a 0.5 terabyte SSD. Now, it says it can support up to 128 gig TF card expansion and a 1 terabyte SSD, which leads me to believe you can crack it open. Now, looking at the back of it, there's no visible screws here, but behind this little bit, or is it just behind this bit? So there is a couple of little visible screws there. So I'm wondering if you open it there and it pops open from the bottom. It's aluminium frame, bits of it are aluminium definitely, and some of it's like metallized plastic. So I think the back panel it looks like it fits in here around here, so it'll probably pop off in that direction if you undo these screws, and I might have a look at some point, but I've not needed to so far. Speakers are at the sides here, so when you're using it as a tablet and it's folded flat, you don't get great sound output because obviously it's only got a little bit there to let the sound out. And this, like I say, the speaker's on the side, so even at peak volume, the sound's coming out the sides. It's not brilliant. Now there's, feature-wise, there's some pogo pins on the bottom, and it's magnetised along the bottom edge here. Worth noting. Your stylus can stick to the side, but obviously if the keyboard's attached, if your keyboard's attached to the bottom, it doesn't really stick anywhere else. So if you're using it as a tablet and you're doing some drawing, great. And if you're not, store that somewhere safe. So yep, other side, this side's quite good. So you have the power in jack, which comes with its own little charging lead. It has a mini HDMI out, USB-A, I think it's a 3.1 or 3.2 perhaps, and a USB-C, and it's a power delivery USB-C. So I've split my charging between using the actual barrel jack, depends if I'm at home. And when I'm out and about, I use this with just a standard, battery pack that you would use to charge up something like your Steam Deck. On the top, you've got a slot for an SD card. Now I've got a 512 gig in there, so this thing's rocking 1 terabyte, and that's all it needs. You have your volume rocker on that side and your power button. And on this side, quite usefully, there's only one thing. It's an output for a set of earphones. So back to the screen here. It's 2160 by 1440, and it is an absolutely lovely display, I have to say. It's in fact, I think at the moment I've got that set to its lowest brightness setting, or one of its lowest brightness settings. So if we just tweak that up a little bit, this thing gets pretty bright. Now it's a glossy display, so I'm holding it at a bit of an angle so you don't get lots of reflections. But yeah, it's a nice display. 12 inch, and as you've probably noticed, it's not a widescreen, it's a 3:2 aspect ratio, which means it's brilliant for retro gaming, because they fill the screen. And it's also brilliant for using in this mode, and I'll show you why in a moment. Now, just like any Windows device, they're a little bit slow in rotating. The auto rotate's not great, but then sometimes Android can be a bit sluggish too. It claims it has a 9-hour battery life, and it maybe does if you turn the brightness all the way down and have the volume turned down and you're really just doing some light browsing of the web. I've seen probably 5 or 6 hours at a push. For me, normally, sort of medium brightness, I'm seeing about 4 hours, which the machine that I purchased this to replace was getting about that long, and that's kind of my target. So it's got quite a small battery, 4500 milliamp hour, which seems quite small, but it seems to cope really well. It can fast charge, and it's a fully featured Type-C port. So I believe that also does video out. On the next piece of bump, this thing also has 2 cameras. Now it has a front-mounted camera, which is really low resolution. I think it's probably just a couple of megapixel. In fact, it says there 2 megapixel front camera. It's barely sufficient for Teams meetings, and I've used it for that. And the rear camera is a 5 megapixel camera, and it, again, it's pretty bad. It's there for desperate times. It says Bluetooth 4.2, but it says 5.0 earlier in the advert. So when I've checked this device in settings, I'm not really sure if it's 4.2 or 5, but it has connected to all my devices and worked fine. The Wi-Fi is Wi-Fi 5, so that seems to work pretty well. And that's the last of the marketing bump from their webpage. I'll just go back to this main page here if you want to look at that later on. So what I will say is, I've used this occasionally in tablet mode, and when I do use it in tablet mode, it's for consuming graphic novels, and I'll just fire that up just to show you how easy it is. So I've loaded an app called Cover, which you can get from the Microsoft App Store. It's free, and yeah, I was reading The Walking Dead at the time, so yeah, the problem with looking on a laptop is you don't get this kind of feeling of a page. You're not getting the whole page on display, you're having to scroll. But it's a 3:2 aspect. You flip this thing horizontally and it fits the whole page on. Looks great. And it makes it really good for scrolling through pages. Really responsive, because it's not a super powerful processor, but it's more than responsive enough for the task in hand. So yeah, this was one of my main reasons I wanted this. So I had an old laptop. It was a real budget laptop, 2-core thing, Celeron based, and I just used it for basic browsing. And with that browsing, a little bit of work as well via Teams and Office. So this had to be able to do that. That was never going to be a problem. It's a pretty powerful device for the form factor and for the price. And it's great for this, for consuming electronic books. It's also quite good for gaming. So you can play PC games locally on this thing. One of the things I like to do is, I'll just move this back a bit, I like to pull out the stand. Actually better getting around at the speaker grill because it pops out fine there. Propping it up. I'll just adjust the camera angle just now. And I grab my my most portable controller, which is my 8-bit DO SN30 Pro. Just turn that on, it'll connect pretty much instantly. There you go, that's it connected. And I can load up any games. So what I'll do is I'll just, I'll zoom in a little bit here. But I've only tested a few games on this. Now these games up here work, but they're not really running at full speed. Now, what I did find is, so if you go in and set your properties, the display settings, this thing will be running at its full display resolution. Now if you drop that down to 720p, and for the processor that's in this, 720p is kind of perfect for gaming. If we drop down to 720p, still looks good. When you're running half the resolution. These games up here will now run a bit better. The games from over there have jumped across, but that's fine, don't worry about that. So games like Wreckfest, for example, we'll fire that up and I'll cut back to that in a moment. Okay, I'll carry on talking while I'm loading this up again. So not only does it come with the stylus I mentioned earlier, but it also comes with a little keyboard. And as you can see, it's got pogo pins up here, and it's got little locating lugs to help it kind of snap into place. It's got a kind of fabric back on it, and it actually sits in 2 different positions. Now we'll just quickly show you that. Oops. So if I lift this up a bit, slide it under, it just finds itself. Now you can use it flat and it's slightly extended, or you can lift it up and it sticks to the screen, so you get a little bit of a gap, so it's actually elevated. And I have to say, I use it in this setup quite often as a laptop. When I'm reading books, I just pull this off and use the screen. I'm not really a graphics person, you know, I'm left-handed for a start. And but that said, the palm rejection works really well, and drawing on it actually does work pretty well. I'm not going to show you some of that because I'm horrendous at drawing, but I'll show you some of this. Now it's not fantastic setup. It's 720p, absolute lowest settings. It's averaging about 30 FPS. And this is just my usual driving on these circuits. I'm terrible unless I practice a bit first. But, you know, this has proper damage shown on these things. So this is quite a beefy game to run. You can do quite a bit of damage. But it is running surprisingly well. I mean, personally, I would use one of my handhelds because they're a little bit more powerful. But if this was all you had, you could get by. Now, as you can see, there's a little bit of slowdown now and then. But all things considered, how low powered this device is, this is doing alright. Let's just pitch this guy in a spin. Oh, it didn't work. But as you can see, at 720p, lowest settings, it looks a little bit jaggy in places. Honestly, turning any settings up to try and make it look a bit nicer, well, absolutely grind this thing to a halt. Anyway, that's Wreckfest. I'm doing better than I thought I would. I'm not showing you my controller, but I am actually playing here. Let's complete this one lap. Right, okay, I got to 9th place. And as you see, keyboard just worked instantly. So we'll go down. Now, some other games I've tried are Need for Speed Most Wanted, Cult of Lamb, Stray, and Dave the Diver. Now, those games all kind of work at 7p. Need for Speed will run at pretty much almost 60 FPS, my feeling. Certainly running relatively playable, but again, it's absolute lowest settings. Cult of Lamb's a little bit stuttery. I was surprised by that. Dave the Diver runs okay. Stray, again, you have to drop the render resolution down to something like 60% or 70%, and it's the lowest settings. It'll play, but it's not fantastic. Now, let's just go back in and change the display settings back up to its recommended. Some of the games that work well are Streets of Rage, for example. We'll load that up. So in the Steam games, I have the little FPS counter on the bottom there. You can see it's actually not running at 60 FPS there. It's close though, but it feels pretty good. Looks amazing. I've just left this at stock settings. And this is one of these games that, you know, as you do, you hear about a good deal in a game, it looks amazing, you buy it, and then you never get around to playing it. But this plays well. Now it says 56, 57 FPS, but I would say for the hardware involved, it's doing actually pretty well. If you want to watch more footage of this, I can do a stream one night, if anybody's interested. Now, I did originally plan on doing a big scripted review of this device, and in the end, I just decided to do a one take. Now, it's a one take where I'll edit out all the dead space, but yeah, this is pretty good. I can see Stardew Valley runs absolutely flawless. Grid Auto Sport, it's hit or miss, lowest settings. It does actually work okay. We'll give that a go actually, because I like racing games more than any other games. Sonic All-Stars runs fantastic. The Walking Dead, well, it's a story-led game, so even if the frame rate wasn't great, it would still be a good playable game, but it's good. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that runs well as well. Lego Marvel runs perfectly as well. So, as you can see, we've got the FPS counter from Steam. It's up and down a bit. It settles down to about 30 FPS. Now, we are running 720p here, and pretty much the lowest settings. I think I've turned on a little bit MSAA, but not much. Now, it's dropping down to 25 there. Now, if I changed the resolution in Windows down to 720p, it would run a little bit smoother. It would run a little bit faster. But however, I have to admit, I'm a little bit... I can play this game at 30 FPS, or slightly subpar 30 FPS, because I used to play this on my GPT-Win, the original model. Although I've not played for a while, and as you can see, I'm a little bit out of practice. But yeah, it plays okay. The audio's getting a little bit stuttery there, but like I said, if I change this down to 720p on the panel, it'll run 35-ish FPS, which again isn't great. I mean, this is an old game, but it's I like this game because the other drivers are just absolutely brutal, and you can be brutal back with them. You have a real bit of argy-bargy with them, and with the damage turned on, you can have a bit of a laugh, especially if you manage to finish a race with one of your wheels pointing in the wrong direction. So again, that says 28 FPS. Not super smooth, but it's relatively playable for what you're actually getting here. Now, like I say though, turn the resolution of the display panel down, not just in the game, and it will run a little bit better. So let's just quit with this just now. Now, one game I will say that runs particularly well is Vampire Survivors, surprisingly well. This will run at pretty much 60 FPS, right until you get to the very late game, you know, when you're over an hour into this game and you're getting a lot of stuff on screen. It will start to chug a little bit then. Sometimes it'll chug right down to like 1 FPS for a few seconds, and then it'll speed up a bit again. But, you know, if you're using Sammy, you'll level up like crazy on that, and that does tend to absolutely hammer any device I've played this game on. But 60 FPS, what I will say, the one caveat I've not mentioned so far, is that I've been playing all these games so far on balanced power plan in Windows. So if you set it to performance mode, you will get more FPS, especially in games like Grid Auto Sport. That will jump up to close to 40 FPS. I was a little bit surprised by that, but as you can see, this is running like a dream. And what I'd like to show you finally, at the end, would be some emulation. And I was quite surprised with this. It can do about as much as I expected for a low-powered Windows handheld. As you can see, this is running pretty well. It obviously dips down when you get menus coming up, but it's pretty much stable at 60 FPS. So we'll just quit out with that just now. So let's first have a little look at some emulation on RetroArch, and as you can see, it looks absolutely amazing on this little screen. So let's scroll along a bit, see what we've got. What can we try out? A little bit Afterburner. No, maybe not that. I'll try something else. So I haven't done any resolution enhancements here. I'm not running any clever settings. It's just straight out of the box. And that's PS1, okay. So PS1 games, they're obviously going to play pretty well. So yeah, pretty much anything at the RetroArch kind of level isn't going to be an issue. There's some guys there. Let's have a little bit of fun. Oh, there was one there. Well, I shot one down. That's good news. Right, let's exit this just now. So, no issues with RetroArch. I also tested a little bit of PCSX2, so let's give that a go. So I've added a few games on here. Let's do, I don't know, God of War, why not? It's the kind of go-to, isn't it? Or should I say God of War 2? We'll do God of War 2. We'll just say, we'll just load the state we were in previously. Again, I've not really done any major changes in this. Now again, I've not done any major tweaks in here. I could probably do a little bit of settings tweaks, but as you can see, it is dipping down to less than 60 FPS. Now I think this is the PAL version, yep, so it should be around about 50. Now give me 2 seconds and I'm going to change this to performance mode in Windows. So if we go to high performance, which ironically turns down the brightness, turn that back up. Only thing is I've got a SNES style SN30 Pro and I can never remember what buttons are which and switching between PlayStation, so. But you'll see, this is pretty playable. We're locked at basically 50 FPS. It's occasional dips below when big things happen like that, but you can't react to those points anyway, so. It's just almost a cutscene when you're getting bashed. I hope this video has been of use to you. There's not many videos of this device online. I did notice that CHUWI had done one, which when I was looking at this device, I hadn't initially saw that. It was great to watch this video. It certainly helped inform me. It's also you could do some light editing on this because it is 4 cores, 8 threads, and 12 gig of RAM. It's not going to be super fast, but for the videos I do, it'll probably be okay. There's one last thing I wanted to pick up on him. What was that? Try and remind myself. Oh yes, it's 1440p, so why not check out a little bit of YouTube? We'll do that now. So this appears to be the default video that most people tend to show when they're showing footage, so we'll just check we've got that set to 1440p, which we have, and we will turn on Stats for Nerds, just so you can see that it's actually running really well. Oops, I'll stop that now. In fact, what we'll do is we'll just put this on is there an option to put this on loop? Yep, and we'll just loop this now as well. So as you can see, it's a beautiful display. It really is. This camera won't be doing it justice. Absolutely won't be doing it justice. But what a cracking little device for the money. £300, you get this 1440p screen. It's got Windows, which is good for gaming in general, I guess. I was not really bothered with Android or Windows, to be honest. But I wanted to do consumption of graphic novels, can do that, no problem. The 3:2 aspect ratio is just absolutely sweet as a nut. It looks great. I have read quite a few graphic books in it so far. I've played quite a lot of games. Vampire Survivors is just tremendous on this, especially with a little controller. But you can use, the keys if you want, or you can even use the screen. This was going to be a big scripted video, but I decided just to do a single shot. This has been like 35 minutes long. I'll cut out the gaps in between. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next video. Bye for now.